This is a pre-recorded audiobook for 20,000 Leagues Underneath the Sea by the Bantium Classic, the Classics, translated by Anthony Bonner. 20,000 Leagues Underneath the Sea, Chapter 1, Part 1, Chapter 1. A Shifting Reef. The year, the year, the year 1866 was marked by a strange event, an unquenchable occurrence which undoubtedly still fresh in everyone's memory. Were aroused by all sorts of rumors, but it was stir-faring people who are practically excited. Merchants, ship power, captains, skippers, masters of Europe and America, naval officers in all countries, and the vast governments of both continents were deeply convinced over the matter. Several ships had recently met at sea, an enormous thing, a long slender object which sometimes and was with infinitely large, faster than a whale. The facts concerning its apparition, the entire and various logbooks agree closely with one another at the structure of an object of a creature in question, the incredible speed of its movements, the surprising power of its locomotion, and the strange life which had been seemed endowed. If it was a member of a whale family, it's larger than so far classified by scientists. Neither Culver, Lake Poncia de Mia, nor Quantiferos would have admitted that such a monster could exist, unless they had seen it with their own scientist eyes. Taking advantage of the observation made at different times, in rejection of those time evaluations which said object was only 100 feet long, and was putting aside those exerted opinions, which was a mile wide and 3 miles long. One could nevertheless conclude the pheromone creature was considerably larger than anything. At that time, recognition of the isotopologist, even it existed at all, but it didn't exist, there were no denying that this fact any longer concerning the natural incline of human brain toward objects of wonder. One can understand the excitement producing throughout the world by the supernatural of creation. In any case of the idea, putting into the realm of fiction had been abandoned. On July 20th, 1866, a steamer Governor Higginson of the Cation Bernstein Naval Company had encountered a moving fast miles east of Australia coast. Captain Baker first thought he said an unknown reef. He was ever getting ready for a plot position of 2 columns of water spearing out of the incredible object and rose loud, whistling noise to the height of 150 feet. So as the reef is contained a glacier, the Governor Higginson is quite simply persistent of the unknown aquatic mammal, squirting columns of water mixed with air and vapor out of the blowholes. A smaller thing was observed on July 23rd, the same year in the Pacific waters, by Christopher Columbus of the West Indian Pacific Steam Navigation Company. This extractor culture, therefore, moved more on peace or in a surprising speed. Since with the space of only 3 days, the Governor Higginson and a Christopher Columbus had sighted, it had 2 points of globes separated by more than 150,000 nautical miles. 2 weeks later, 4,300 miles from the last spotted, the Helvetia, the Champagne National, the Shannon of the Royal Mail Steamship Company passed the opposing course as part of the Atlantic, lying between the United States, Europe, synced of one another, had sighted a monster at 15 latitude, and 60 and 35 west of the long simultaneous observation. They felt the jug, the certain mammal length more than 350, since it was larger than the bottom of each ship, measuring 330 feet overall. but the largest whale, the Kamuka and Almekli, lived in the waters around the Antilles Islands, never exceeded 180 feet in length. It was much more at these reporters arriving on the other fascinating observation on board of the Lea Pierre collision between the Antenna and Marin Line and the monster of the official report down by the officers of the French frigate Normandie. A very reasonable sighting made Coromandel Felicity James' staff on board a loud syndrome greatly stirred the public opinion. In the light-hearted countries, people made jokes about it, but in serious practical mind, countries such as England, America, Germany, it was a matter of grave concern. In the big city, the monster became famous. It was sung in the cafes, derived by newspaper discussion on the stage, scandal. Sheets of various opportunities print all kinds of weird stories. Even annoying newspapers always sort of copied print articles that even huge ordinary imaginary monsters. One could think of it as one of the white whale terribly Moby Dick, of the far north legendary Norse Kraken, whose tentacles can endure 500-ton ship and drag to the bottom. Reports of the ancient times were mentioned in opinions of Aristotle and Pinion, who admitted the existence of such monsters along with those Norwegian bioship Bantoon Kaptein Paul Hagen, and finally Mr. Harrington, whose good faith no one concerned questioned the claims have seen while on board Castine. In 1857, the enormous serpent which until they had been seen in the waters of the old newspapers appeared at Constantinople. It was there that significant societies, journalists, and argument broke out between who believed in the monster, who did not. The question of the monster had everyone aroused the newspapermen, who always pretended to be on one side of the scientists and those who live in their imagination. Spilled the gallons of ink during the memorial campaign, and some have even spilled the 2 or 3 drops of blood after arrangements that started over the sea serpents, endured the most violated personal insults. For 6 months, this war waged on vanity, fortune, and serious weight articles that is published by Brazilian Geographer Institute, the Royal Scientific Academy of Berlin, the British Association of Ceremonial Institutions of Washington. Others appeared in Indian Advercolian and the Able Manigan Cosmos, and a pen remains Michigan. In the science section of important newspapers of France, and other countries, of similar tainted newspapers, the smaller newspapers replied, with exalted energy, there are writers clearly part in saying that Luninous, which had become quoted adversely by the monster stated, and natural does not make fools. They call the companies in other country nature by a serious discrimination of krakens, sea serpents, Moby Dicks, and other reports of delirious sailors. By the much disdrained scientific newspaper, the favorite writer took care of the whole matter, tackling the monster of the Hippopotamus, doing the death blow, and finishing off in the midst universal laughter and a conqueror's science. During the first months of the year of 1867, the whole question seemed buried, never to be revealed, when new facts were brought before the public. It was no longer questions of scientific problem resolved, but a real danger seriously to be avoided. For the whole matter took another effect of the monster. Now became a small island, rock and reef, but the reef was variable, shifting eternally. On March 5th, 1867, the Montreal Ocean Company sailing at night at 27 Italian latitude and 27 and 15 longitude. It struck starboard side of rock in no chair by cruising 13 knots under coming to force of wind by 400 horsepower engines, and not been for superior quality of the hull, the Mervyn and Undead would have been split open and sunken with 237 passengers, bringing back from Canada. The accident took place about 5 in the morning, toward daybreak. The officers on the watch refused after part of the ship. They examined the sea carefully and saw nothing but an area swirling water a third mile away. As surface been violently agitated, the position was noted, and Morven continued on its way, apparently without any serious damage. It had been struck by submerged rock, or a enormous wreck of some shrunken ship. There was very knowing by interdiction of the hull in the dry dock, shoved apart of the knee and broken, even though it is although extremely serious itself, may perhaps have been forgotten, like so many other occurrences, if 3 weeks later it would not be reenacted under similar circumstances. But because of the nationality of the ship involved in this new collision, the reputation of the company with which it belonged, the event caused tremendous stir. There is no one who can not heard from the famous English ship power Candoria in 1840. This steward business started a postal service between Liverpool and Haxford with the 3 wooden steered wheel ships of 1,062 tons, each equipped with engines capable of developing 400 horsepower. 8 years later, the company fled to increase by 4 ships of 1,200 tons, each with a 650 horsepower engines. Then 2 years after, by 2 other vessels, which greater tremendous power in 1853 the Conjuring Line, whose mail carry privilege had just been reviewed, successfully added in the fleets Iberia, the Berseria, the China, the Scatania, the Java, and the Russian Rasana. All of them were very fast and large, and any ships found the seas of the Great Eastern, thus in 1867. The company unheard 12 ships, 8 with side wheels and 4 propellers. If given us a brief detail on everyone might know the importance of the ship's company, knowing the world over intelligence which run. No transcending venture has been over cleared organized, and now crowned such successes in 26 years, carrying ships has crossed the Atlantic in 2,000 times, without missing a single voyage, was never delayed or without losing a single letter manned ship. This was way passing split a competition of French liners, still a crane line in the preference of others would appear. But survey official documents in the last few years, none therefore will surprise their cause in an accident involving the finest steamers. On April 13, 1867, the Scatania was sailed at 15 and 12 long and 45 and 30 latitude. On a clear sea, a moderate breeze was traveling at speed at 13.43 knots, propelled by its 1,000 horsepower engine. As side wheels in the water regular rhythm, it was driving by 22 feet, and the water displaced of 233,900 cubic feet. At 4:17 in the afternoon, while the passengers were gathered at the big lounge having their tea, a side blow was against the hull of the Scatania. A coil of sight became the port wheel. The Scatania was not struck something. It had been struck by some object with continued cutting performance than a blunt. The blow seemed so suddenly and nobody aboard would ever give a second thought that not men working behind blow rushing upon the bridge shouting, "We're sinking! We're sinking!" At first men were very frightened, but the captain, Anderson, quickly assured them. For those who were not in danger, the Scatania was divided into 7 watertight permits, therefore it could face the leak and financing. Captain Anderson immediately went down to the hold and found 55 compared flood at the sea which had been proved the leak consistent able. Fortunately, the compound did not contain the boiler, or those fires would have been gone out immediately. Captain Anderson was ordered the engine to stop all at one of the soldiers. Soldiers drove to find out the extent of the damage. Soon discovered that there was a hole 6 feet across in the hull of the steamer. But such hole could not be plugged up. To Scatania continued, which side wheels still have submerged. She was then 100 miles from Kappa Clear. Finally, 3 days hid behind schedule. Delay was caused a great unease in Liverpool. She came alongside the company docks after putting her in dry dock. The engines inspect the Scatania. They cannot believe their eyes. 8 feet below at waterline, there was not a whole form isolation triangle. It was so perfectly shaped that it could scarce have been done better positioned instrument. The obligation such as material hole has been extremely unusual. After being drove into the sinking ship, Pilgrim's force enough to pierce a hole of 1.5 inch thick. It may have withdrawn itself in a manner completely unexpected. This event can once again stir up the public opinion from one another. All unexpected losses at sea and attributed to this monster. The fantastic animal bore responsibility such as shipwrecks, unfortunately not in a few number. For 3,000 ships reported sunk each year by the burial Veturius, the number of steam sailor ships assumed to be lost with the hands of thousands, though we have seen of any news amount, no less 200. And it was the monster who rightly or wrongly held responsible for its disappearance, for the increased danger of traveling between various continents, to the point where the public came out and kindly demanded that seas be rid of the foreign creature at any